Good. Shall I start?
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am. Okay.
Good evening,
How's it
ma'am.
going?
Ma'am, we are doing fine, ma'am. Kudrat, shall we start now?
Yeah, we can start.
Okay. Good evening, ma'am. I, Pranav Garg, on behalf of the entire team of Samvaad, the discussion forum, honestly welcome you to the in-house discussion session on fashion law, IPR, and nuances of litigation. Ms. Namrata Pahwa is an alumni of University of Calcutta and National University of Singapore, from where she did her LLM in International Business Law. Apart from this, ma'am has her diploma in cyber law, business law, and fashion law. Ma'am has been a practicing advocate in Delhi High Court since 2016. Once again, I welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, Vedant.
Thank you, Pranav. Good evening, ma'am. I, on behalf of entire team Samvad, welcome you to the another event of Samvad, the discussion forum, and its chapter Tete. This is our first in-house discussion. Ma'am, Samvad is a purely student-led platform to induce meaningful discussions by opening a cross-culture dialogue on the issues of national as well as international relevance. The idea behind the establishment of Samvad encapsulates the three Ds, that is, debate, discuss, and devise. And Samvad is a journey of ideas and words that would later mold the action of individuals and would expand the horizon of one's knowledge. So, ma'am, Team Samvad is delighted to have you with us. Over to you, Sparsh.
Good evening, ma'am. Beginning the discussion, I wanted to ask you, as fashion law is a relatively unexplored area, could you please throw some light on this discipline for us and our viewers?
Sure. So before I start, it's entirely my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's actually wonderful to see that students are actually wanting to know about the new facets of law, about the unconventional side of law as well. So wonderful to speak about those aspects. Now coming to your question, what is fashion law? It's one of the most interesting aspects of the legal field that I can imagine. Um, Fun as well as extremely technical. Fashion law, as we all know, doesn't actually fit into one statute or two statutes or three statutes even. In its ambit, it encapsulates multiple genres of law, multiple acts, which you as a lawyer, you as an advisor or consultant to your client will have to figure. So it's uh, everything that you as a creator and artist that would have to figure out from the start to the end of your journey. All of those laws are encapsulated in something called a fashion law.
Thank you so much for those wise words, ma'am. It was beautifully encompassed, and I think it served as an introduction for people who were not aware of this field. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good evening, ma'am. I had another question. Uh, Ma'am, when you think of the word fashion law, the first question, the most basic question that comes to mind is that what subjects does one have to study and what all areas of law does one have to be acquainted with in order to pursue a career in fashion law?
Okay, that is a great question because a lot of times people are confused as to what all does it actually have in its ambit, right? So I always give this as an example is that if you're an artist, if you're a creator, if you're thinking about a design, if you're a fashion designer, let's say, the thought that is in your mind, the way you sketch it out on a piece of paper, you give it to, say, your karigar to make a rough garment out of it that goes on to the wholesaler, then the retailer, and then the end consumer, and then the entire supply chain. So all the laws that you will have to face is encapsulated in fashion law, namely, most importantly, we can think of is intellectual property. The single most important way that a creator, an artist will be able to secure or protect its creation is IP. From that, we come to, I would say, second most important would be contracts and negotiation. So contracts, drafting, vetting, negotiation negotiating with, say, you're collaborating with some other artist, you're taking a service from some X person, and so on. So contracts play a huge role. Then, of course, depending on the kind of structure, the kind of business that you want to formulate, so there's company law. Depending on how big your company is, you'll have to figure labor laws if it's beyond the next number of employees that you have. A lot of times when import and export come into picture, you have to consider customs law as well, because a lot of, especially in the fashion field, we come across a lot of counterfeit issues or infringement issues. So, excuse me, that also is a very, very important part. And of course, there's dispute resolution, there's infringement issues, like I said, counterfeit issues, and so on. So these are probably the most important facets of law which come under the umbrella.
Thank you, ma'am. That really answered my question. I'll be sure to keep that in mind going ahead. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, I even had a question. Like, how does one discover these uncommon areas of law? So, if you could just tell us how you discovered fashion law. Like, for the first generation of law students, these are completely uncharted territories for most of us.
It's not very clear. Could you repeat your question?
Ma'am, I was just asking her how does one discover these uncommon areas of law? If you can tell us how even you discovered the fashion law. For the first generation law students, these are completely uncharted territories for most of us. So, also, how did you uncertain what you wanted to pursue, like IPR and fashion law, in all these plethora of other areas of law?
So, I started at the very beginning when I was in law school. So, Calcutta University gave us full freedom as to whenever we would want to intern, right? So, consider 4.5 years out of those 5 years, you're free to intern. The rest of your, of course, is examination. But thankfully, I fully utilized those as I interned in as many places as I could, and I interned different facets. So, I interned criminal law, I interned in institution, I interned in NGO, IP, corporate. I did everything that I could have thought at that point. Once I was reaching, probably I was graduating, I had done one internship in IP, and I sort of kind of liked it, but it was like I wasn't sure that I will pursue that as my career. Went on to do my master. I came back. I joined an IP firm. It wasn't actually a thought-out process. It was something that I always liked studying and pursuing as well. And it just so happened that I was working with an IP firm. But we, apart from that, we were doing a lot of dispute resolution as well. When I was doing IP in the firm, and thereafter when I joined an individual practitioner at the High Court, a lot of the clients that those people had were either artists, startups, designers, or of course big scale pharma companies. So protection of IP, negotiation skills, litigation was actually a big part of how I was being trained as a lawyer by them. I think that is why when I started my own practice, I was very fond of working with artists, individual, say designers, small scale companies, startups, etc. So one of the first clients that I had was a small scale company based out of Bangalore, and thereafter it's just been a mindset that I always wanted to pursue something which I liked reading, which I liked researching on, because as I'm sure as students that law is like an ongoing you have an ongoing exam or an ongoing sort of research that you have to keep doing all through, so that you're updated with the amendments or updated with the law. And you can only do that willingly if you like the topic. So it doesn't matter if, say, the topic is new or old, as long as you like it, you stick to it. And as far as your question goes as to how can we consider doing novel areas of law. How do we find them? It's just that either be strategic about it, either think that okay, maybe there is a void in the legal lacuna, if there is a void in the legal legislation, that maybe you can think that maybe up till about 10 years ago sports law wasn't really a thing, but it is now. So either be strategic and try to find those voids, take inspiration from what the other laws are there all over the world, or of course the less strategic way, or at least the one that I took, was that just bend yourself as to towards whatever you like reading, because law, we have to read hundreds of pages. We have to research on a daily basis. So that's those are the two ways that you could probably figure what you want to pursue, or how which direction you want to take your legal career in.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That was really helpful.
Ma'am, I had another question.
I'm just clearing it out.
Yeah, no problem. I had a question that how to pursue LLM in this field. As you know, not many universities offer a postgraduate program in fashion law.
Right. So I think the first ever master's program in fashion law was in Fordham University. As far as I know, there are a couple of international universities that actually provide a master's in fashion law. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend you to do a master's in fashion law. I would, maybe you can do a diploma, maybe you can do a course, but it depends also actually what and how the university is structuring the course. So whenever you choose your master's program, please, of course, you will look at the university, you will look at the professors, but also look at the structure of the program. What are you going to get out of that master's after 1 year or 2 years or whatever? If you just want a degree, if you just want a wider outlook, then of course you can go for it. But what the learning that you're going to get, the knowledge that you're going to get, that is the only thing that you're going to actually utilize over the next 10 years of your life. So pick that over the university name, over the professors, and so on. I think in India there isn't any masters in fashion law as far as I know. There are courses, there are diplomas, there are other certificate courses that you can do, and I suggest that you do that first. And then I would suggest you intern or you work with, say, somebody who has a fashion law vertical, or somebody who has a practice dealing with IP and dealing with designers. Only if you like what you're doing, then if you think that you can actually add value to the legal fraternity being in the fashion law business, then you would probably go and do an international master's. But I think as of now, Indian perspective wise, whatever we have right now is good enough. So start with that, I would say.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very helpful for me.
Ma'am, I have another question. Like, why does the legal sector does not give enough attention to gray areas like fashion law? As you have also talked about sports law, that is well not something like before 10 years. So why these gray areas are not given attention, especially when I'm talking fashion law? Then our Indian textiles and apparels have always been one of the most sought after globally. On the other hand, and an industry which is substantially weak with respect to legal protection. So, ma'am, what according to you is the reason behind this problem? And ma'am, I especially wish to know why there is a difference between the there is a loophole in the connectivity between the legislation and the actual problem and the actual thing which we need to deal, especially in these gray areas.
So let me start by saying that yes, there are loopholes. Yes, there are certain voids. Yes, there are certain places that we as a legislation can work on, can get amendments. But uh, if you're a designer, if you're an artist, the legal fraternity provides you a very exhaustive layer of IP protection. There is contract law which you must delve in. So I wouldn't say that there is immense gray area. Okay, so when you're starting off, I recommend there is in fact lack of awareness that people are not aware that maybe I should be filing for IP, I should be getting my contracts done, I should be looking into X, Y, and Z factors of my business. That is what we do first. Once you're say done with the first peripheral layer of the legislation, then probably you will move on to the more technical aspects. So yes, the Indian laws have certain gray areas, but in fact, the the upkeep of it, the amendments, and how fast the amendments are coming out are actually quite great. Which I'm sure you know that the Designs Act was just amended in 2021. So people not people, but like the legislation is taking into consideration the issues that designers face. There are various corporations, there are institutions which are coming up only to help designers, only to help artists. They not only provide legal support, they also provide advisory, discussion, etc. So it's very easy to say that okay, the Indian legislation has lots of loopholes and we should be getting inspired from the West. But in India, and then we'll speak about the legal ones.
Okay, ma'am, totally agree with the awareness, and we should do an suggestion, and there should be awareness about among the fraternity to maintain the gap. Totally agree. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Having heard this conversation so far, ma'am, I have one question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what according to you should be the strategy of the law students and the practitioners for fashion law to become a mainstream field, ma'am?
What should be the strategy of a law student to make it their main what? Sorry.
And the practitioner, ma'am.
Yeah.
Because this area is less explored. Ma'am, what can we as a law students do to
what can you do,
do
right?
that so that this area becomes a main field area, ma'am?
Okay, so for a law student, I would recommend interning. That is probably your best, or the strongest suit that you can actually chart. Intern in 3 areas of IP. First is prosecution, which means filing of intellectual property. Second is transaction, which means contract drafting and vetting. And third is litigation, which is any kind of dispute resolution. Because in IP, you'll figure there are criminal and civil cases which you can actually enforce. So intern in these 3 areas, and then start your independent practice, because an artist may come to you and ask for their one issue, but if you actually know what goes on or what should be going on in the business of an artist, then you'll be able to advise better. So only once you intern, you'll probably figure that okay, maybe this is something that he should be looking into, etc. But yeah, that is probably the way you can make your you can probably change a direction or make fashion law a vertical of your practice. But you have to understand with fashion comes a lot of assets, right? So you have to understand what customs law is, you have to understand the criminal side of it, you have to understand import export issues and so on. So it's not something that okay, you can do one thing and you're now an expert in fashion law. You have to first have some sort of experience in all of them, and then you'll probably be the best version of a law that you can have.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for an insightful answer.
Good evening, ma'am. We all have been battling with COVID-19 for over an year now, and it has affected almost every aspect of our life. So I just want to ask, what difference has this pandemic made in the practice of fashion law?
The pandemic has actually changed a lot of things in the fashion industry, starting from, of course, all the designers, all the design houses, everything going online, right? We've shifted focus from offline stores to online e-commerce and e-retail. So we're in the e-retail atmosphere that we're all in. When you're converting or making that change, you have to think about lots of things. You have to think about if your terms and conditions, privacy policy of your website are in place. You'll notice how YouTube or Google keep updating their terms of service. And there's a reason for that, because the way we're changing as a global fraternity, you have to keep amending it. Then there are disclaimers that you have to place on your website. Uh, you have to figure your supply chain factor. So, if you're sending your garment out to your customer, they don't like it, they send it back. What is your return policy? Is the supply chain okay? Can it actually deal with the entire issue? That you have to figure. But apart from that, when it comes to the pandemic, we have seen a lot of interesting changes in the fashion industry. We're looking at online photo shoots. We're looking at online presentations and fashion shows and whatnot. We're looking at how AI and technology is actually inculcated in the fashion shows nowadays. I think, at least in the West, when they send an invite to, say, an influencer or a celebrity to welcome them or invite them to the fashion show, they give those AI goggles so that they're actually part of the show. So the lots of changes, and mind you, all of those changes comes with, of course, legal issues. So how you're either collaborating with the AI licensee or licensor, how is that coming together with your team? When we talk about fashion photo shoots, the quintessential question was, who does the IP belong to? The photographer, the artist, or the platform, right? So who does it belong to? There are certain small questions that we're all dealing with right now because it's unprecedented times, and thankfully we're evolving. So the biggest change which the pandemic has seen us through, or we're still seeing that, is the inculcation of NFTs, which are in the market, are actually a big driving point, a big encouragement to the design world, because it's not only giving you a value on, you say, your creation, it's coding it as well, right? So you can track the levels or the weights to the particular creation has been sold from X to Y to Z. So previously, when, say, a painting was to be sold, you could never track it. You could never say that, okay, maybe it actually belongs to the original user, now it's going away, but now you can. So that's a big encouragement to the fashion world. That's a big encouragement to the design world. India is, I think, yet to see an NFT being introduced, but it's there in the West, and I'm sure it will trickle down sooner or later. But in the pandemic, that we've all evolved, and we've all taken the online version as though second skin, and that's what has happened in the fashion world as well. I hope that answers your question. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay.
Ma'am, I just wanted to ask you one more question. Like, artificial intelligence are generating like so much invention, and like we still don't know. There are not any specific rules about who should be given the, like if you're going for a patent and something, so who should be the inventor, and also how does this like if some design is generated in a fashion design is generated in like fashion or something, so who will get the copyright law and all, how it is determined?
Okay. So this is one of the basics of fashion IP, right? Say, let me take an example. Where I'm an artist, I'm starting my own business. The logo of the business, the brand name, how it is represented, how your tagline will differentiate your goods and services from somebody else's goods and services, that can be trademarked. You should always trademark, say if you have a logo with another tagline below it, you must trademark them separately and then them together as well. If you are creating something, say you're a designer, right? You're creating a particular motif which goes on your fabric. That particular motif can be copyrighted. It was a big revelation in the fashion world when Rohit Bal and I think Anita Dongre managed to copyright an entire garment. So what happens, practically speaking, is that if you're say if you want to copyright a particular motif on a garment, you can only copyright that. Say suppose I have a motif here on a white kurta. Only the motif was being able to be copyrighted. But now we've seen that the entire kurta can be copyrighted with the motif. Now the second challenge is that if you are a consumer label, if you are in a manufacturing business where you're going to sell or if you want to sell more than 50 particular garments, you want to sell more than 50 particular versions of that particular product, then you should not copyright it. Then you should file a design application, because according to the Design and Copyright Act, if as soon as you create the 51st product or the 51st artistic creation, then you lose copyright in it and it goes into the design domain. That is design and copyright. Design is for the 2D representation, 3D representation. Patent is actually a lot of people don't know or are not aware that patent is a very, very important part of fashion law. Patent, we have been filing patents for generations before even we were filing trademarks and copyright and design applications. Like from the simplest of things, stonewash jeans, the way the procedure of putting the chemical on that particular denim, then putting a drying element, that entire process is patented. Your zippers are patented, Velcro is patented. So these things which were in fashion 50 years ago and still is now. It starts from that, and of course now when patent is introduced, there are you can create odor relieving fabrics which you can have through the patenting system. There are I think cooling fabrics. There are so many things which are part of, or of course, patent is a huge part of that particular fabric. Lingerie plays a big part of the fashion world, and the way a lingerie is constructed, corsets are constructed. Designers should always use patent to be the way to protect them, and then of course they should go to say a copyright or a trademark. But unfortunately in India we've seen that because of course patent is the most expensive also the most time taking. Now, because of these two reasons, we've seen that artists and entrepreneurs are mostly they shy away from filing it. But I must encourage all artists and entrepreneurs here, saying that it's as, copyright is as nominal as 500 rupees. So please go on and file. Don't be hesitant. Don't be thinking that how can I file so many copyrights or whatever. Yes, practically speaking, you can't file a copyright for your entire collection if you're introducing a collection every 2 weeks. But of course, then that's the business strategy that you have to take that point. But this is the way you will have to bifurcate your clients or the artist's business when they come to you, and this is the way you will differentiate and then file it in different acts. So I think that should answer your question.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Ritesh Arora. Ma'am, I would like to have your insights on what is the legal protection granted to the knockoffs or dupes of fashion brands or thrifts markets like Chandni chowk and Sarojini, or for the fact, or any similar market we see in our nation.
Okay, so before coming to your Chandni Chowk and your other Sarojini and your other markets that actually make infringed and copyrighted versions of the designers, let's first come to the online platform, which we are now in. First, let me speak about Instagram. So Instagram is probably one of the platforms where there are home designers now, there are home artists now that actually just put on a picture of, say, a Sabyasachi, and they claim that I will make it for, say, half the price, or they claim that this is mine. So number one, what to deal with your online infringers. Of course, first and most importantly, you will send a cease and desist legal notice, asking them to completely cease using that particular infringed good. If they're using the trademark, then of course cease to do that. They must get rid of all the infringed goods that they have been using so far. They must, if they file an application or whatever, they must retract them. If this doesn't work, you have a civil suit vertical that you can take. You can file a civil case against them for injunction. You can file a criminal case against them, asking for, again, injunction and damage of profits and so on. These are the two main ways that you can deal with, say, online, of course, and offline infringers as well. When it comes to online infringers, you can actually, there's a way to alert Instagram, or there's a way to alert, say, Google or YouTube or whatever, who they actually have an IP alert application where, say, if you're the bereaved party, you can actually file that particular application, and then it's one of their duties to actually take the infringement down. So they are no longer just a platform where people can just come and just put whatever. They have the responsibility to take action as well. Now coming to the physical market, right? So one of the best ways to deal with, see, of course, if you know that X is infringing your goods, you will obviously send that particular person a CND or a legal notice or whatever. But say you don't know who is infringing, you just know that in that particular area somebody is doing it, and I have news of it. There's an ant and pillar order that you can actually take. There is a John Doe order which actually you can institute from say, a high court. Through that order, you can have an injunction over a particular area. So a local commissioner is then appointed. You take the local commissioner to that particular area, they do their own investigation, and then so on and so forth. So those are, say, bracketed orders through which you as a designer can actually hold on to or accuse a particular area to have infringement going on there. So these are the few ways that you as an artist can probably take action against infringers.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I really like the way you explained it, and really it widens our horizons of the fashion law. And for us, for the law students, it really gave an insight for. Thank you so much, ma'am.
My pleasure.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, there is a question which always comes in mind when I come across two same designs but different fabric. So, in cases where the core design is copied, but the accompanying elements such as the fabric, the pattern of the garment is mutated. So, how to seek remedy in such cases where it has an impression of work not copied?
So I think previously when the question was asked as to how can you differentiate and file, right? So depends on what you're filing for. So if you have, say, a copyright application or a design application on that particular motif, any use of that particular motif anywhere, you can file an injunction order and get that retracted, irrespective of fabric is changed, color is changed, etc., etc. You can still get it retracted. Now, if the copyright application is on that particular motif, on a particular fabric, then you can only retract that as a whole and not something else. So it depends on how you're filing for your IP. Essentially, what happens, like I said, that if you have created something, still obviously number one is copyright application is not mandatory in India. But if you are a designer, if items more, so you're going to file a design application. In such a case, even if the accessories are changed, if the ancillary items are changed, but it's essentially, say, even if it's deceptively similar, the infringement is deceptively similar, there are certain changes, you can still file for an injunction.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for explaining this complex topic in a very simple manner.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, Priya, you are.
Ma'am, I have a question since you have been working in entertainment law as well. So, do we have any protection, any safeguards in respect to minors? Because we are seeing a huge influx of minors in entertainment industry. So, there are any governing principles for contractual obligations of minors?
So what usually happens is that, yes, in my practice, I've done a couple of contracts where minors were the artists. We basically only want the legal guardian to sign and be present while signing. The legal guardian should also be present during the shoot whenever the artist is or the junior artist is required. These are the basic things which are involved when it comes to minors. And apart from that, of course, there are he or she has to be part of CINTA, which is the governing regulation. Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. I think Priya is facing network issue.
Okay. So what I was saying is that they have to be part of CINTA. CINTA dedicates a lot of rules and regulations, number of hours that they can shoot, number of hours of the break between two shoot days, say 12 hours, 14 hours. These are the kind of rules that are in the CINTA regulations. So those actually form an important part. But When it comes to contracts, only a legal guardian must sign.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I have one more question. Like, do you want to give any advice to budding lawyers like us for our future?
My only advice is, I guess, um, this generation of lawyers that we're going to see are actually very, I've actually noticed this for a very long time, is that um, your generation is very fearless and very open, very outright, which is great. Because I remember when I was a law student 10 years ago, I didn't have, of course, we didn't have the means of, just listening to an interview, going and listening to a webinar, checking into doing diploma courses, certificate courses for really exciting areas of law, which I would have loved to do when I was a student. But my only advice is take advantage of what the entertainment and the internet is offering you. So attend as many webinars, do as many courses. We're all sitting at home. You don't have to ace your course. You don't have to get like some percentage or whatever out of it. Just do it out of will, or out of wanting to learn. And second most important thing, which actually I learned after a very long time, is to keep writing. So when I was in university in Calcutta, we were encouraged to write articles. You write an article, write like 100 pages and then get it published somewhere. And for me, it was too taxing. Like it was too much for me to research so much and write and then get into the entire thing of publishing it. So I never gave it that much of a thought. But now I like writing smaller things. It doesn't have to be 20 pages. It can just be 2 pages of what you're researching, what you're thinking, what you're writing. But the way you write, the way you articulate, the way you research, that actually makes a lot of difference in your blogs, in your articles. So just keep writing whatever, at whatever length, whatever topic you want to write, just write it and just make it a habit, make it a practice, because that is what we're going to do for the next 40 years if we are going to stay in the legal fraternity. So these are the two basic things which I think I would want you guys to do, because I would have done that had I been in your place.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the advice.
Ma'am, I had another question. You talked about that motifs can be copyrighted. This leads me to a query that let's say a certain brand like Tommy Hilfiger deals in a certain kind of denim, which is very significant in their color, and when you see that fabric, okay, that's Tommy Hilfiger's collection. So can an entire fabric be copyrighted, and if so, wouldn't that lead to an anti-competitive practice that gatekeeps a certain fabric from other designers to use it completely?
So you cannot copyright denim. You cannot copyright linen. Same way, you cannot copyright or trademark the color blue or purple or whatever. You can select a particular shade, a particular Pantone shade which comes. Similarly, you can copyright or file a design application on the way that, say, denim is being cut, is being the length of it, the design on it, the pattern on it, the grains, the blue grains on it. Those things can be protected, not the fabric as a whole. Because once we start doing that, like you correctly said, that it will just be, it will be a monopoly game then, whoever does it first. But that is never the goal in the IP industry. So say you've just figured out that, this is this particular style of denim I want to copyright. So you do that. You take the particular shade of blue or whatever, and then that is how you protect.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That solved my query. Yeah. So with this, we come to an end of today's discussion, and I, on behalf of the entire team of Samvaad, extends my heartfelt gratitude to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us for this discussion. before today, we each had a completely different narrative regarding fashion law. But right now, because of this discussion and all the information you provided us, we have a more detailed perspective. And now we can form an informed opinion about the field. So, really, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.